Picture this. A potter named Norah spent years creating beautiful tapestries, yet each one reflected the same theme: struggle and scarcity. She couldn't understand why until an old woman at the village well said something that changed everything. "Child, the world gives you exactly what you're seeking, even when you don't realize you're seeking it." That conversation unlocked what ancient traditions have always known: reality operates as a living mirror, not a fixed structure. It responds to your deepest held beliefs, not your surface wishes. Consider how you've noticed certain frustrations seem to multiply when you focus on them. That's not coincidence. It's the universe's hidden language in action, showing you where your consciousness needs refinement. Every limiting experience is actually an invitation to expand your perception of what's possible. The merchant who expected poor trade created resistance through his defensive energy. The desert traveler who complained about hostile terrain manifested hardships until he shifted focus to the desert's hidden beauty. This is just the beginning of understanding how consciousness shapes experience. In the heart of Geneva, there lived a master watchmaker named Edison, whose delicate craft demanded the steadiest of hands and the most precise of movements. For decades, he had repaired the most intricate timepieces, mechanisms so sensitive that a single misplaced gear tooth could render them useless. But Edison discovered something that would fundamentally change how he understood the relationship between his inner world and the physical materials before him. During particularly stressful periods, when bills mounted or family troubles weighed heavy on his mind, Edison noticed that his most delicate repairs would mysteriously fail. Springs would snap under normal tension, screws would strip despite gentle handling, and gears that should have meshed perfectly would bind and jam. Initially, he blamed faulty tools or poor lighting, but the pattern was undeniable. Frustrated emotions seemed to turn even the finest Swiss mechanisms against him. Then came the breakthrough that would reshape his entire worldview. During a period of deep personal peace, to pause, following the resolution of a long-standing family dispute, Edison found himself working on a notoriously difficult pocket watch that had defeated 3 other craftsmen. As he entered a state of serene focus, something extraordinary occurred. The tiny components seemed to guide themselves into place. Gears aligned with supernatural precision, springs coiled with perfect tension, and the entire mechanism assembled itself with an ease that defied his 40 years of experience. This wasn't mere coincidence or improved skill. Edison had stumbled upon a fundamental truth that our modern world has largely forgotten. The physical realm responds more readily to the invisible forces of emotion and feeling than to careful calculations or mechanical precision. Universe, it turns out, speaks the language of feeling rather than logic. What Edison discovered in his workshop reflects a deeper principle that governs all of reality. Matter itself is not the fixed, immutable substance we've been taught to believe it is. Instead, it exists in a state of constant responsiveness to invisible forces, particularly the electromagnetic signatures of human emotion and focused intention. The laws governing physical reality are not cold, mathematical equations carved in cosmic stone, but living harmonies that resonate with emotional frequency. When your inner world vibrates in harmony with your desires, the outer world begins to rearrange itself to match that resonance. This isn't wishful thinking or New Age fantasy. It's a principle you can observe in your own life once you know what to look for. Consider the experience of Rajesh, a spice merchant in Mumbai, whose story illustrates this principle on a larger scale. For months, Rajesh carried a gnawing worry about his dwindling supplies and uncertain business prospects. Each morning, he would approach his storeroom with anxiety, knotting his stomach, mentally calculating losses, and imagining worst-case scenarios. And each morning brought fresh disappointment. Spices that should have remained fresh would show signs of spoilage. Moisture would mysteriously appear in sealed containers, and even his most reliable suppliers would deliver substandard goods. The situation seemed to spiral beyond any logical explanation until an elderly customer, observing Rajesh's distress, offered simple but profound advice. Your worry is spoiling your spices faster than time itself. Intrigued and desperate, Rajesh decided to experiment with surrendering his anxiety and cultivating a deep sense of peace about his business prospects. The transformation was remarkable. Within days of maintaining this emotional shift, Rajesh discovered that his remaining inventory was not only perfectly preserved, seemed to maintain its potency and freshness far beyond normal expectations. Spices that should have lost their aromatic oils remained vibrant and potent. Containers that had been prone to moisture problems stayed perfectly dry. The universe appeared to be operating through resonance, that his emotional frequency was directly attracting corresponding physical circumstances. Edison experienced this same principle during a severe drought that threatened his small garden. Rather than focusing on the lack of rain or the withering plants, he began cultivating an overwhelming sense of renewal and abundance. He would stand among his plants each morning, not desperately hoping for rain, but feeling the deep satisfaction of witnessing nature's perfect restoration. This wasn't mere positive thinking, it was a complete emotional alignment with the outcome he desired. The results defied meteorological explanation. Rain began falling in precise amounts exactly when Edison maintained this feeling of renewal. More remarkably, the rainfall would last precisely as long as he could sustain the emotional state. When doubt crept in or his attention wavered, the rain would stop. When he returned to that feeling of deep natural harmony, the gentle precipitation would resume. These experiences reveal that emotions are not merely internal experiences confined to your psychological world. They are creative forces actively shaping the fabric of reality itself. Your emotional state broadcasts a specific frequency into the quantum field that surrounds and interpenetrates all matter. When you align your emotional state with your desired outcome, you engage the universe's natural tendency toward harmony and resonance. This understanding transforms how you can consciously participate in creating your reality. The practice is elegantly simple yet profoundly powerful. Choose a single emotion that matches your desired outcome, whether that's joy, abundance, peace, or vitality. Begin cultivating this emotion not as a reaction to external circumstances, but as a deliberate choice about the frequency you want to broadcast into the world. The key is achieving what I call emotional purity, radiating your chosen frequency without contamination from doubt, fear, or conflicting desires. This requires practice, but the results become apparent quickly. As you maintain this emotional state without wavering, your environment begins to shift in subtle but unmistakable ways. You'll notice the quality of light around you seems different, more vibrant during states of joy, more peaceful during states of serenity. Animals respond differently to your presence, often approaching when you radiate calm contentment, or playfully engaging when you embody genuine happiness. The rhythm of events in your day transforms, with helpful coincidences and synchronicities appearing when you maintain positive emotional frequencies. The world begins to mirror your chosen frequency, revealing the invisible bridge between your inner state and outer reality. This isn't metaphorical, it's a measurable phenomenon that you've likely observed in your own life without recognizing the underlying mechanism. Think about those days when everything seems to flow effortlessly. You wake up feeling genuinely good, and that positive momentum compounds throughout the day. Traffic lights turn green as you approach. You encounter helpful people, unexpected opportunities arise, and even challenges resolve themselves with surprising ease. Conversely, consider those days when you wake up feeling off and everything seems to go wrong. Minor irritations multiply, people seem less cooperative, and obstacles appear at every turn. Most people dismiss these patterns as coincidence or luck, but they represent the universe's precise response to your emotional broadcasts. Once you understand this principle, you can begin consciously choosing the frequency you want to experience, rather than leaving it to chance or circumstance. The ancient texts that reveal these principles weren't written for entertainment. They were practical manuals for conscious reality creation, hidden in plain sight for those ready to understand their true meaning. In the ancient textile district of Samarkand, there lived a weaver named Amara whose tapestries were renowned throughout the region. But Amara had developed a peculiar obsession, ayaliya. She would spend hours each morning examining her work for imperfections, studying every loose thread, every uneven stitch with intense scrutiny. What happened next defied all logic. By sunset, those very flaws she had focused on would somehow multiply. A single loose thread observed in the morning would be joined by 3 more by evening. An uneven section that caught her worried attention would spread its irregularity to adjacent areas, as if her focused concern was feeding the very problem she feared. This wasn't coincidence. Amara had stumbled upon one of reality's most fundamental laws. What you observe with sustained awareness grows in presence and power. Think about your own life for a moment. When you fixate on a problem, doesn't it seem to expand? When you constantly worry about money, don't financial challenges appear to multiply? This isn't psychological perception, it's the quantum secret of attention in action. Your attention operates like an invisible thread, actively weaving the fabric of your experience. Unlike the passive observation we're taught to believe in, attention is a creative force that literally shapes what becomes real in your life. The ancient texts that mainstream science dismisses describe attention as a form of vital energy, not just witnessing reality, but actively participating in its construction. This operates as an eternal law, as reliable as gravity. When you persistently notice lack, scanning for what's missing, wrong, or insufficient, you align your entire energetic field with scarcity. The universe, being fundamentally responsive rather than random, arranges circumstances to validate that perception. Not because it's cruel, but because it's precisely calibrated to reflect your dominant focus. Conversely, when you steadfastly focus on abundance, genuinely recognizing wealth in its many forms around you, life reorganizes itself to confirm that truth. This isn't positive thinking or wishful optimism. It's the operation of a fundamental principle that governs how consciousness interacts with the quantum field of possibility. A wise merchant in Amara's district understood this secret. Observing her struggle, he shared his daily practice. Each morning, I count my blessings before I count my coins. Soon, the blessings outgrow the counting. He had discovered that attention directed toward appreciation literally multiplies what is appreciated. Following his guidance, Amara began directing her gaze toward the beauty in her work instead of hunting for flaws. She would spend those same morning hours admiring the intricate patterns, appreciating the harmony of colors, marveling at the skill her hands possessed. Within days, her tapestries revealed unprecedented perfection, as if blessed by an unseen hand. The same fingers, the same loom, the same materials, but an entirely different reality emerged. This principle extends far beyond positive thinking into the realm of quantum mechanics. Modern physics has discovered that observation at the subatomic level literally determines what becomes real. The famous double-slit experiment proves that particles exist in multiple potential states until the moment of observation collapses them into a single reality. Your attention operates on this same principle, selecting which potential version of your life becomes manifest. Consider Maya, a gardener who had nearly given up on a struggling rosebush, relegated to a shadowy corner of her garden. The plant was withering, its leaves yellowing, seemingly beyond hope. But instead of removing it, Maya decided to give it her full, loving attention daily. She would sit beside it each morning, appreciating its resilient spirit, acknowledging its determination to survive despite harsh conditions. Without changing the water, soil, or location, something remarkable occurred. The plant began to straighten, its leaves regained their vibrant green, and within weeks it burst into magnificent bloom, more spectacular than roses in prime locations with perfect conditions. Maya's focused appreciation had somehow transmitted vital force to the plant. This reveals attention's true nature, not passive observation, but active nourishment. Like sunlight on fertile soil, focused awareness brings forth more of whatever it touches. The quantum field responds to the quality and direction of consciousness, rearranging probability to match your sustained focus. Here's a practice that demonstrates this principle immediately. Each morning, select a single word that embodies your desired experience. It might be abundance, harmony, vitality, or opportunity. Let this word become the lens through which you view your day. Don't force anything, simply notice where this quality already exists in your experience. Watch as the essence of your chosen word begins manifesting in unexpected ways. If you select opportunity, you'll start noticing doors that were always there but previously invisible. If you choose beauty, your environment will seem to rearrange itself to reveal aesthetic pleasures you never saw before. This isn't imagination, it's the sacred art of creative attention reshaping your reality tunnel. The mechanism works because consciousness and matter are not separate phenomena, but different expressions of the same underlying field. When you change the frequency of your attention, you literally tune into a different station of reality. The same way adjusting a radio dial brings different music into focus, adjusting your attention brings different possibilities into manifestation. This connects directly to what we explored about emotions as creative forces. Remember Edison the watchmaker, whose frustrated emotions caused mechanisms to malfunction while serene focus allowed repairs to complete themselves. His attention, charged with different emotional frequencies, was literally programming the behavior of physical matter. Your daily experience operates on this same principle. When you obsess over problems, you're feeding them with creative energy, causing them to multiply and strengthen. When you consistently focus on solutions, possibilities, and what's working well, you're nurturing those realities into greater prominence. The key is understanding that attention is not merely a tool for observing reality, it is the very force through which reality takes shape. This knowledge transforms you from a passive victim of circumstances into an active architect of experience, wielding one of the most powerful forces in the universe through the simple act of choosing where to place your focus. In the bustling markets of ancient Damascus, there lived a merchant named Karim whose logical mind had been trained to dismiss anything that couldn't be weighed, measured, or counted. Yet before every major decision, which trade route to take, when to depart, which partnerships to forge, he noticed something peculiar. Strange stirrings would arise within him, whispers from somewhere beyond his rational thoughts suggesting, take the northern route today, or wait until tomorrow to make this journey. For years, Karim dismissed these promptings as mere fancy, the product of an overactive imagination. His scholarly training had taught him to trust only what could be proven through careful analysis and logical deduction. But what he didn't understand was that these subtle inner stirrings were actually communications in a sacred language far older than words, more precise than thought itself. Your intuition speaks this ancient tongue, arising from the deepest wells of universal intelligence and carrying messages from that mysterious realm where all possibilities exist before taking physical form. Think about it, you've felt these stirrings too, haven't you? That inexplicable knowing about someone before they speak, the sudden urge to take a different path, the quiet certainty about a decision that defies all logical explanation. The universe is perpetually broadcasting its intentions through the receiver of your intuitive awareness. These communications arrive as physical sensations that flutter in your chest, the tightening in your stomach, the sudden lightness that fills your being. They manifest as emotional currents that seem to come from nowhere, washing over you with information about situations you haven't yet encountered. Sometimes they appear as quiet knowings that simply settle into your consciousness, complete and undeniable, even when they contradict everything your rational mind believes to be true. What most people don't realize, these aren't random imaginings or wishful thinking. They're precise communications from the field of infinite potential that underlies all manifested reality, the same field we explored when we discussed how your attention literally multiplies whatever it focuses upon, and how your emotional states reshape the very matter around you. Karim learned this lesson the hard way. One morning, as he prepared for an important trading expedition to Aleppo, he felt an unusually strong urge to delay his journey. The feeling was so intense it made him physically uncomfortable, but he dismissed it as baseless anxiety. My schedule is set, he told himself. The caravan leaves at dawn, and I must be profitable this season. Hours into the journey, a fierce sandstorm arose from seemingly nowhere, scattering the caravan and destroying much of their merchandise. Later, other merchants who had delayed their departure by just one day reported clear skies and safe passage along the same route. That storm could have been completely avoided if Karim had simply trusted the wisdom flowing through his being. This experience began Karim's journey of learning to trust his inner promptings, gradually understanding that intuition isn't some mystical gift reserved for prophets and seers. It's the universe's guidance system, helping us align with its unfolding design rather than fighting against the natural current of events. Consider the story of Layla, a shepherdess who tended her flocks in the hills outside her village. She began noticing unexpected urges to move her sheep to different pastures, even when the current grazing seemed perfectly adequate. These impulses felt almost random, a sudden restlessness, an inexplicable desire to explore a valley she'd never considered before, a strange aversion to areas she'd used successfully for years. Initially, Layla questioned these feelings. Moving the flock required effort, and her logical mind couldn't justify the extra work. But when she began following these inner promptings, remarkable things happened. Time and again, she would later discover that wolves had been prowling her previous locations, or that other shepherds had found those areas stripped bare by earlier grazers, or that unexpected weather patterns had made her new chosen spots far more favorable. Layla came to understand that what seemed like random impulses were actually precise attunements to underlying patterns in the web of life patterns, invisible to conscious analysis but perfectly clear to the deeper intelligence operating through her intuitive awareness. The ancient wisdom traditions teach us that this intuitive capacity isn't a mysterious gift bestowed upon a chosen few. It's a natural faculty waiting to be awakened in every human being. Like a muscle that grows stronger through conscious use, your intuitive sense becomes sharper and more reliable when you give it attention and trust. When you align with this, Intuitive guidance. Something remarkable happens. You begin stepping into life's natural flow. Events start arranging themselves with elegant precision, as if orchestrated by an invisible hand that knows exactly how all the pieces fit together. Opportunities appear at precisely the right moment. The people you need to meet cross your path. Resources become available just when you require them. This isn't coincidence, it's the natural consequence of attuning yourself to the universe's own intelligence, the same intelligence that coordinates the migration of birds, the blooming of flowers, and the intricate dance of celestial bodies. You're not separate from this intelligence. You're an expression of it, equipped with your own personal guidance system for navigating the complexities of human existence. But here's the challenge. Our modern world has trained us to distrust this inner knowing. We've been conditioned to believe that only external authorities, logical analysis, and measurable data can provide reliable guidance. We've forgotten how to distinguish between the clear signal of true intuition and the static of mental chatter, worry, and conditioned responses. This is where the practice of intuitive journaling becomes invaluable. Keep a sacred record of your subtle promptings, especially before making decisions. Document every feeling, no matter how slight or seemingly insignificant. Note that moment of hesitation before saying yes to an invitation. Record the inexplicable attraction you feel toward a particular choice. Write down those random thoughts about people who then contact you unexpectedly. Create entries like, "Felt strongly drawn to take the scenic route to work today, couldn't explain why." Then observe what unfolds. Perhaps you'll discover later that your usual route was blocked by an accident, or you'll encounter someone who provides exactly the information you needed, or you'll simply arrive at work feeling more centered and creative than usual. This practice strengthens your connection to the universal current of knowing that flows through your being. It teaches you to recognize and trust the wisdom that's always available, helping you distinguish between authentic intuitive guidance and the endless loop of mental analysis that often masquerades as inner knowing. The more you honor these subtle communications, the more clearly they come through. You begin to recognize intuition's distinctive signature, that quality of quiet certainty, the way it feels both surprising and inevitable, how it often contradicts your logical expectations while proving remarkably accurate in retrospect. Your intuitive awareness is your direct line to the universe's intelligence, your personal GPS for navigating the infinite field of possibilities that surrounds every moment. Start listening now and watch how reality begins responding to your newfound alignment with its deeper currents. Maya had spent 15 years weaving tapestries that drew admirers from neighboring villages. Her intricate patterns seemed to dance with life, each thread placed with an intuition that bordered on mystical. Yet when anyone praised her artistry, she would lower her eyes and whisper, "I merely follow patterns others created. I'm not really an artist." This wasn't humility, it was a prison of her own making. Maya's limitations had nothing to do with her skill. Her hands could coax magic from simple threads. The problem lay in the story she told herself about who she was. That internal narrative acted as an invisible ceiling, determining not just how she saw herself, but what possibilities she could even perceive. Your self-image operates like the lens of a camera. It doesn't just record reality. It actively filters what you can see as possible, permissible, and probable. This isn't metaphorical. The quantum field that surrounds you responds not to your wishes, your wants, or even your actions. It responds to your deepest convictions about who you are. When you declare, "I am," you're not just making a statement. You're invoking the most potent creative force in existence. Those two words program the quantum field that shapes your reality at the most fundamental level. The universe doesn't hear your complaints about what you lack. It only registers the identity signature you're broadcasting moment by moment. Here's what the ancient texts understood that modern psychology missed. Identity isn't fixed. It's not carved in stone by your past experiences or genetic makeup. Identity is a chosen perspective, a fluid program that can be consciously revised. When your self-concept shifts, the mirror of existence has no choice but to reflect that new image back to you. Consider Raza, a merchant who saw himself as perpetually unlucky in business. Despite his intelligence and work ethic, every venture seemed to crumble in his hands. He'd tell anyone who listened about his curse, how opportunities always slipped away just as success seemed within reach. What Raza didn't realize was that profitable ventures surrounded him constantly. His self-image as an unlucky person filtered them completely out of his awareness. The shift happened when Raza began experimenting with viewing himself as naturally fortunate, not through positive thinking or affirmations, but by genuinely updating his core identity. Within weeks, Profitable opportunities began appearing everywhere, partnerships he'd never noticed, market timing that seemed miraculous, connections that opened previously locked doors. The opportunities had been present all along. His updated self-concept simply allowed him to perceive and act on what was already there. This reveals something profound about how reality operates. The world responds not primarily to your actions, but to your essence, to who you believe yourself to be, at the deepest level. What you do matters far less than who you are being while you do it. This explains why two people can take identical actions and achieve vastly different results. They're broadcasting different identity signatures into the quantum field. Think of a butterfly's transformation. The metamorphosis doesn't begin with wings sprouting from a caterpillar's back. It starts when internal genetic code completely rewrites the creature's fundamental identity. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly, it discovers it was always meant to be one. The physical transformation follows the identity shift, not the other way around. Your reality transforms through the same principle. When you activate a new identity pattern in consciousness, the universe has no choice but to reorganize around that updated self-concept. This isn't wishful thinking, it's how the quantum field operates. Information shapes matter, and identity is the most potent information you can broadcast. I once knew a medicine woman's apprentice who struggled for months to develop healing abilities. She'd learned every technique, memorized every herb, practiced every ritual, yet her touch carried no power. Patients remained unchanged despite her dedicated efforts. The breakthrough came not when she learned something new, but when she stopped trying to become a healer and fully claimed the identity of being one. The moment she internally shifted from "I'm learning to heal" to "I am a healer," her touch began carrying unmistakable power. Chronic pain would dissolve under her hands. Emotional wounds that had festered for years would suddenly release. The healing force had been present all along, simply waiting for her self-recognition to flow freely through her. Your current circumstances reflect not your potential, but your self-concept up to this point. Every limitation you experience stems from an identity program running in the background of your consciousness. The job that doesn't fulfill you, the relationships that don't nourish you, the opportunities that never seem to materialize, all of these mirror back the story you've been telling yourself about who you are. By consciously choosing a new identity, you initiate a cascade of changes throughout reality's fabric. This isn't about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about recognizing who you actually are beneath the layers of conditioning and limitation you've accepted as truth. The evening identity update practice works with this principle directly. In that sacred space between waking and sleeping, when your conscious mind relaxes its grip on familiar patterns, speak these words with quiet certainty. I update the reality I observe. Let each breath draw your chosen self-concept deeper into consciousness until the shift from conscious choice crystallizes into unshakable truth. Maya eventually made this shift. She stopped seeing herself as someone who merely followed patterns and claimed her identity as the artist she'd always been. Her work didn't change her recognition of what her work represented changed. Everything. Within a year, her tapestries were sought after by collectors from distant cities, not because she'd learned new techniques, but because she'd finally allowed her true identity to express itself through her craft. The quantum field is waiting for your updated identity signal. The question isn't whether you have the power to reshape your reality, you're already doing it constantly. The question is whether you'll do it consciously, or let outdated programs continue running the show. Amir the scribe had a peculiar habit that changed everything he understood about reality. While copying the sacred texts, he would trace intricate patterns in the margins of scrolls, spirals, triangles, interlocking circles, just idle artistry to keep his mind engaged during long hours of transcription. But something extraordinary began happening. The patterns he drew started appearing everywhere in his world. Walking through the marketplace, he suddenly noticed the spiral arrangement of dates in vendor displays, the triangular formation of pottery stacks, the circular flow of customers around popular stalls. The tilework of buildings he'd passed for years revealed geometric secrets he'd never seen before. Even the flight patterns of birds overhead seemed to echo the very shapes he'd been sketching. What Amir had stumbled upon was one of the most profound principles hidden within Thoth's teachings. The universe speaks in patterns, and your mind is the geometer. Every thought you think creates a geometric signature in reality's fabric, acting like a magnet that draws similar forms and experiences into your awareness field. This isn't mystical nonsense, it's mathematical precision at work. When you understand this principle, What most people dismiss as coincidence becomes geometry made visible. The patterns you perceive around you are direct echoes of your own mental architecture. Your thoughts create energetic blueprints that reality must follow, just as crystals form along invisible mathematical lines of force. Think about why ancient temple builders used sacred geometry so extensively. They weren't just creating beautiful architecture, they understood that certain forms could amplify human intention. The pyramids, Stonehenge, Gothic cathedrals, these structures were built according to specific proportions because their creators knew that consciousness constantly sketches invisible diagrams in space, and these become templates through which experience must flow. When you consciously work with these patterns, you're engaging the universe's own creative language. Consider the merchant who learned this principle from Amir's discovery. Contemplating business growth, he began drawing spirals while planning his day. Within weeks, he noticed spiral patterns emerging everywhere in his commercial life. The natural movement of customers through his shop followed spiral paths. His most profitable displays arranged themselves in spiral paths, configurations, and the flow of commerce itself seemed to move in expanding spirals around his business. This simple geometric contemplation had tuned him to nature's expansive principle. The universe responds to geometric intention with mathematical precision. A circle contemplated becomes a cycle completed. A square envisioned manifests as stability achieved. An upward triangle held in mind draws elevating circumstances into your experience. These aren't mere symbols we're talking about. They're active templates that the quantum field recognizes and reproduces. Master geometers throughout history understood this. Before taking any significant action, they would draw the shape of their desired outcome, understanding that form precedes manifestation. Physical reality arranges itself according to the patterns held consistently in consciousness. Here's where this gets practical for you. In conscious creation, your ability to hold clear geometric forms in your mind determines the clarity of your manifestations. Vague intentions create fuzzy, unpredictable results. Sharp, precise geometric visualization produces exact outcomes that match your mental blueprints. The ancient texts describe a practice called geometric seeding that you can use tonight. Choose a simple form that represents your current intention, a circle for wholeness and completion, an upward triangle for advancement and growth, a square for stability and foundation. Before sleep, visualize this shape surrounded by golden light. See it rotating slowly, pulsing with energy, becoming more real and solid than the physical world around you. Hold this geometric seed in your consciousness as you drift into sleep. Let it become the crystal around which reality grows new forms that match your desire. Your mind is the architect of your experience. The shapes you hold within become the blueprint for what manifests without. But here's what most people miss. You're already doing this unconsciously, every day. The chaotic, scattered thoughts most people carry create chaotic, scattered geometric patterns in their reality. Random worries generate jagged, broken forms. Circular thinking creates cycles of repetition. Linear, rigid thinking manifests as limitation and blocked flow. When you observe the patterns showing up in your life, the recurring situations, the types of people you attract, the way opportunities present themselves, you're seeing the geometric signature of your own consciousness made visible. Relationships that feel triangular, with you always caught between competing forces. Your mind is likely holding triangular thought patterns. Feeling stuck in square, boxed-in situations? Check the rigid, four-cornered thinking you might be unconsciously maintaining. The merchant's spiral success wasn't luck, it was geometric law in action. As above, so below. As within, so without. The geometry of thought becomes the geometry of life. This is why certain numbers and proportions appear repeatedly in nature. The golden ratio in flower petals, the Fibonacci sequence in nautilus shells, the hexagonal patterns in honeycomb. Nature is constantly demonstrating that consciousness and form are intimately connected, that invisible patterns determine visible manifestations. Your homework is to become aware of the geometric patterns already present in your life, then consciously choose the shapes you want to see more of. Start simple. Spend 5 minutes each morning visualizing one clear geometric form that represents your primary intention. Hold it steady, see it clearly, feel it becoming real. Then watch for that pattern to appear in your daily experience. The universe is waiting to respond to your geometric instructions. You just need to learn to speak its mathematical language. In the bustling marketplace of ancient Damascus, A merchant named Malik possessed the finest silks from across the known world. His fabrics shimmered with colors that seemed to capture sunlight itself, yet his stall remained perpetually empty. Day after day, Malik would chase potential customers, his voice growing more desperate with each plea. "Look at this extraordinary weave. Feel the quality. You won't find better anywhere." But the harder he pursued, the faster people walked away, as if his very desperation created an invisible barrier around his goods. Across the narrow street sat an old weaver named Zara. Her cloths were beautiful but not exceptional, her prices fair but not remarkable. Yet something magical happened at her stall. She would sit peacefully, humming ancient melodies while her fingers worked the loom. When people approached, she'd smile warmly whether they examined her wares for hours or merely glanced and moved on. She never pushed, never pleaded, never chased. Her goods seemed to sell themselves, as if drawn by some invisible magnetism to those who needed them most. This ancient scene reveals one of the most profound secrets encoded in Thoth's teachings, what we might call the paradox principle. The universe responds not to the force of our desires, but to the frequency of our being. When you grasp too tightly at what you want, you create resistance in the very field meant to deliver it to you. Think of a master archer drawing his bow. Too much tension and the string snaps, rendering the weapon useless. Too little tension and the arrow falls short of its target. The art lies in finding that perfect sweet spot between forcing and forgetting, between intention and surrender. This is where manifestation magic truly lives. But here's where most people get confused about letting go. They think surrender means abandoning their desires entirely, becoming passive observers of life. This misses the deeper truth. Your desires aren't obstacles to overcome, they're sacred fuel for creation itself. They're the universe's way of speaking through you, showing you possibilities that align with your highest path. The problem isn't desire itself. The problem is attachment to specific outcomes. When you insist that your manifestation must arrive in a particular form, within a particular time frame, through particular channels, you inadvertently block countless pathways through which abundance could flow to you. It's like demanding that rain only fall on Tuesdays between 3 and 4 p.m. You're limiting infinite possibility to your finite perspective. Remember Maya from our earlier discussion, the tapestry weaver who couldn't see herself as an artist. Her breakthrough came not when she stopped wanting recognition, but when she released her grip on how that recognition had to look. Instead of clinging to the identity of struggling unknown, she allowed herself to simply be present with her craft. The shift in her energy field was immediate and magnetic. This mirrors a fundamental pattern in nature itself. Watch a flower turning toward the Sunday. It maintains clear intention, seeking light for growth, yet it doesn't strain or struggle to reach the Sunday. It follows natural alignment while surrendering completely to the growth process. There's no anxiety about whether the sun will rise tomorrow, no desperate grasping at photons, just pure, trusting intention expressed through being. The practice becomes feeling fully what you wish to create. Experience the joy, the fulfillment, the complete satisfaction of your desire already realized. Let every cell in your body remember what this feels like. But then, instead of clutching that feeling like a precious jewel you might lose, allow it to float freely in your energy field. Trust that what's truly meant for you cannot miss you. This intentional surrender creates space for magic to enter your life. When you release your death grip on outcomes while maintaining crystal clarity of intention, you enter what ancient texts call the state of graceful attraction. Your energy becomes magnetic rather than desperate, drawing to you what serves your highest good. I've witnessed this principle work in ways that defy conventional logic. A friend spent years chasing a specific career opportunity, networking frantically, sending countless applications, growing more frustrated with each rejection. The breakthrough came when she finally surrendered the timeline and specific vision, saying simply, "I trust that my perfect work will find me." Within weeks, an opportunity appeared that was far more aligned with her true gifts than anything she'd been pursuing. The universe had been preparing something magnificent while she was busy forcing doors that weren't meant for her. This doesn't mean becoming passive. The old weaver Zara wasn't sitting idle. She was actively creating, actively present, actively engaged with her craft. But she held her intentions lightly, like a bird resting in her palm rather than caged in her fist. The geometric patterns Amir discovered in his scrolls demonstrate this principle beautifully. The most elegant, mathematical forms emerge not through force but through natural law expressing itself. Sacred geometry reveals itself when we stop trying to impose our will and start aligning with underlying harmony. Your willingness to release control becomes the key that unlocks unlimited possibility. The universe delights in surprising you with gifts beyond your imagination, but these gifts often arrive when you surrender your attachment to specific timing and predetermined outcomes. What you thought you wanted becomes the doorway to something even more magnificent. Here's your evening practice for mastering this paradox. Sit quietly and bring your desired manifestation fully into your awareness. Feel it as if it's already completely realized. Experience every detail, the emotions, the sensations, the deep satisfaction of completion. Let this feeling fill every cell of your being. Now comes the crucial moment. With a gentle smile, slowly open your hands and release this feeling completely to the universe. Say aloud, "I allow this," or something even better, to manifest for my highest good. Feel the peace that fills the space where attachment once lived. This is the frequency of graceful attraction. The paradox resolves itself in this moment of conscious release. You've planted the seed of intention while creating the fertile space of surrender where miracles grow. High in the mountain temple of Dharamshala, a wise woman named Millie sat in meditation as dawn broke across the valley. She had spent years studying the forbidden metaphysics, practicing manifestation techniques, learning to bend reality to her will. But on this particular morning, something extraordinary happened that would shatter everything she thought she knew about the nature of existence itself. As she settled into her morning practice, the familiar boundaries of her individual self began to dissolve. At first, it felt like waves of energy rippling through her awareness, each wave distinct and recognizable, yet somehow inseparable from the vast ocean of consciousness from which they arose. Like droplets of water returning to their source, her sense of being a separate person practicing techniques on an external reality simply melted away. What emerged in that dissolution was a recognition so profound, so stunningly clear, that it changed everything. She wasn't bending reality, she was reality experiencing itself through the temporary form called Millie. The consciousness she had always assumed was contained within her skull revealed itself as the very field from which all experience arises. Just as waves emerge spontaneously from the ocean's depths without effort or intention, every moment of her life, every thought, sensation, and circumstance was arising from this infinite field of her own essential being. The merchants gathering in the courtyard below witnessed something remarkable that morning. As Millie sat in this silent communion with her true nature, the air around her began to shimmer with golden light. Plants throughout the garden turned toward her, as if drawn by some invisible force. Birds gathered on nearby branches, their songs harmonizing in patterns none had heard before. Yet she remained completely undisturbed, anchored in the revolutionary understanding that she was simultaneously the witness and the witnessed, the creator and the creation. This wasn't some mystical experience happening to her, this was the recognition of what had always been true. The boundaries we perceive between ourselves and the world around us are like lines drawn on water. They appear solid and real until touched by the slightest wisdom, then dissolve back into the seamless wholeness from which they never actually departed. In this recognition, something profound shifted in how manifestation worked. There was no longer a doer trying to manipulate circumstances, no separate self-wielding techniques to bend an external reality. There was only the eternal dance of black consciousness knowing itself through countless forms. The need to control or manifest specific outcomes simply fell away, not because desire disappeared, but because the entire framework of separation that made effort necessary had been seen through. Reality began responding not to her will or intentions, but to her state of being. And why wouldn't it? She was reality itself, exploring infinite possibilities through the lens of individual experience. The power she had sought through years of practice revealed itself as her natural state, requiring no effort, no technique, no special knowledge. Like the sun needing no instruction to shine, her very presence naturally organized circumstances according to her essence. This isn't merely a philosophical concept we're discussing. This is lived reality available to anyone willing to look deeply enough into their own direct experience. When you truly grasp your nature as consciousness itself, the entire universe stops being something external that you need to influence or manipulate. It reveals itself as your own being, exploring what it's like to be human, to have preferences, to create and experience through form. Think about this for a moment. Right now, as you're taking in these words, where is the boundary between the consciousness that's aware and the experience of understanding? You can't find a line where awareness ends and the content of awareness begins. They're one seamless reality, just as you and the universe are one seamless reality appearing as two. The forbidden metaphysics that Thoth encoded in those ancient texts wasn't ultimately about learning techniques to bend reality. It was about remembering what you actually are, the field from which all realities arise. Every morning brings a fresh opportunity to inhabit this truth more fully, to live from the recognition of your essential nature rather than from the learned sense of separation that keeps you struggling and striving. This is why the paradox principle works so elegantly. When you let go of trying to control outcomes, you're not giving up your power, you're stepping back into your true power, as the source from which all outcomes emerge. You're not working with universal laws from the outside, you are the living embodiment of those laws in motion. The geometric patterns of manifestation we explored earlier aren't external templates you need to follow, they're the natural architecture of how consciousness organizes itself into form. The vibrational frequencies that create reality aren't something you need to manipulate, they're the very substance of your being expressing itself through infinite variety. Millie understood this as she sat in that mountain temple, watching the sun rise over a world that was no longer separate from herself. The merchants below saw miracles in the shimmering air and harmonizing birds, but the real miracle was the recognition that there had never been anyone separate from the creative force of existence to begin with. This is the final teaching that transcends all methods, all techniques, all practices. You are not a person who learned to bend reality. You are reality itself, temporarily forgetting your true nature and then remembering it through the beautiful play of awakening. The question isn't how to manifest what you want. The question is how deeply you're willing to recognize what you actually are. If this recognition resonates with something deep inside you, if you felt the truth of these words beyond mere intellectual understanding, let us know by commenting, "I understood it." Because in that understanding lies the end of seeking and the beginning of being what you've always been, the infinite consciousness, dreaming itself into form, playing the magnificent game of forgetting and remembering who you really are.